going to call the first North Augusta Public Power Hour to order. I want to welcome everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. On the screen, you see the ground rules for this meeting, and I'm just going to add some additional comments and clarification of what this meeting will be and what it will not be. As you see, there are no directors or staff in here except for Sharon Lamar, our city clerk, to take notes, and J.D. McCauley, our HR director, who will handle signing in and directing movement on the floor. The directors are not here because this is an unofficial council meeting. It's an informal listening opportunity for council to hear matters of interest from citizens or concerns on non-agenda items. So don't ask about anything that will be on the agenda for the actual council meeting, which starts at 6 o'clock tonight. We won't be voting or solving anything tonight. No action will be taken during this time. We are here to listen and ask questions and make sure we understand what citizens are asking. We have had 4 people either call or email us with their name and the topic they want to talk to us about. These 4 will be allowed to go first in order that they came into the office. In between these 4, I will ask if anyone who is here that wants to talk to council can come forward, and JD will have you put your name down. He will put your name down. If and only if we get through the 4 names and there's time remaining, you will be allowed to address council. So your name might be added to the list, but still might not be able to have time to talk. If that happens, you can still reach out to me by phone or email, so don't worry. We want to listen to you and we want to hear from you. Since we have our city council meeting at 6 p.m., I will end this public power hour tonight at 5:45 just to ensure the rest of the staff can get in place and we can get ready for a council meeting at 6. This will be a work in progress as we work out the kinks and get this to run smoother. So please be patient with us and know this public power hour is a sincere attempt by council to improve communications. Also, I'm asking you to keep it to at least 5 minutes each, but I will be flexible, if at all possible, but I will not let this get out of hand or become a ranting opportunity for anyone. So with that being said, I would ask if our first person, and I don't see him here, but I'll just check to make sure, Seve Adagun. I don't see Seve here. Okay. Then we will move to our second person, Mr. John Felak. If you would come to the podium, John, if you would state your first and last name and address for the record, and then go ahead.
John Felak, my address is 1901 White Bark Avenue. Mayor Williams, members of council, thank you so much for doing this for us. I'm actually coming here as a representative of my business, which is Lookaway Inn, which is on 103 West Forest Avenue. We're directly in front of Calhoun Park, which has had its share of activity over the years. We're certainly a spot for the tree lighting ceremony and a place where the parade takes place and just a lot of things downtown. My issue is with parking. We do have a lot of common parking issues for people using Calhoun Park, which really isn't a big deal for us because it's generally during the day, or it could be in the evening when we may be a little busier. But there just isn't any identified parking areas for Calhoun Park. Now, on Carolina Avenue between Lookaway Inn and Rosemary Inn is a very wide street, which I believe is designed to be a 2-lane street. But in many cases, when I come to work and down Carolina Avenue, as I turn left onto West Forest to get into work, I'm passed on the right because people are just tired of waiting, I guess. But there's 172 feet of space between the yellow marking of West Forest Avenue, where it comes out onto Carolina, and our cut-in drive space that could be identified for parking spaces. So depending on how you could do those parking spaces, if you put them parallel parking, there's room for 9 spaces. And I measured some random parking spaces in the city. And if they were angled parking, we could get as many as 15 in there. And I believe the same could be done along Calhoun Park as well. There's just no marking for any cars to park there. And I think it is, it would define two things, would define parking space for people to enjoy the park or any of the other activities that we have, or personally for functions that we have at Lookaway, and also perhaps slow traffic down so that they don't pass on the right parking areas. So my plea would be is to somehow consider, I don't know who owns the street. I think the same thing could be done on the opposite side of the street for additional parking as well. I'm sure Rosemary may have the same issue with some of the events that they have as well.
Let me just get clarification. Are you talking about you measured there could be 9 spaces on West Forest?
No, on Carolina.
On Carolina.
On Carolina.
Where on Carolina? On the other side of?
Adjacent to our property.
Okay.
Yeah, adjacent to our property going up the hill. Between us and the in cut that we have for entrance into the back of our property.
Just like we park when we have the tree lighting. People park up and down Carolina Avenue, even though it's not marked.
Yeah, my request would be is that we could somehow consider marking that and defining some parking spaces for us, as we have a large expansion coming at our facility, and additional parking places will be at a premium for us. That would be my request along Calhoun Park and or our property as well.
Well, I like the idea from the fact that what you were saying, John, you're exactly correct. If you're trying to stop making a left anywhere on and west is just as bad, people will pass you on the right. You are correct. By putting in, even if nobody's parked there, I think by putting, parking, whatever, that will stop a lot of that. I don't know. I guess Chief's not here. I don't know if we've had accidents because of that, but that brings a big safety concern, and I think that would stop a lot of that, especially right there. I mean, as you get further up, the road stays pretty wide, but, I don't think we're going to do parking all the way up, well, I don't know, all the way up Carolina and west.
I'm new, so I don't know if this has ever come up before, Pat, in the past. Has there been any conversation that you remember from the city as far as looking at what John is suggesting? I think it's a great idea. I didn't know if we ever talked about it before.
It's always been a thought and concern of mine to be able to figure out how to get
Yeah.
some more traffic calming down Carolina, down West Avenue. Those two corridors are not the main ones, but it's a freeway. I mean, they fly down those roads, and they're so wide. I've always wanted us to try to do something to slow West Avenue, Carolina Avenue down.
Yeah,
There's also two new businesses, catty corner from us, between West and Carolina, the paint store, the Benjamin Moore Paint Store, which is on West Avenue, but 2 other tenants that will be on our side as well. I think they may have enough parking. The other bad road issue there is where West Forest empties onto Georgia Avenue. If you've ever come across there and tried to turn left, it's very difficult to see traffic coming up the right-hand side. You've got to ease out pretty far. There was a large oak tree that was just removed just up from our property on Georgia Avenue, which I assume was diseased.
Kevin, I believe you were going to ask something. Mr. Brooks?
This would also give some identity to the entrance to Calhoun Park if we did park in that area.
Yeah, I agree. I think Calhoun Park actually has a lot to gain by identifying those parking places along Calhoun. It's shaded too. It's very nice.
I think if, and again, this is probably a Tom question, but I like the idea of not parallel parking, but kind of the slanted or what you were talking about. That would allow more vehicles to park there, because if you've ever been down for the parade or the Christmas tree lighting or a lot of events downtown, I mean, parking becomes a premium. That is one way, if it's wide enough, to do both sides of the road. And I think it would help tremendously with the traffic calming, because, when I go home from here, I go up West Avenue, I go to make a left on Woodlawn. There's been several times people just come around you on the right through an intersection, no doubt.
Okay, very good.
So
Go ahead, Pat.
John, you're talking about slanted parking.
That would be my preference. You can
I mean,
get more
'cause-
spaces in, and it's easier to get a car in and back out versus
But
not
I
all
know
of us are good
downtown
at
North
parallel
Augusta
parking.
is hard backing out. I mean, with the slanted.
Yeah,
not
that's
as-
a
I
little
mean,
more narrow.
especially if a big truck is parked right next to you, you almost out in the road before
Can't
all of
see.
a sudden here's a car, so. But either way,
That's good. Okay, John, thank you. This is exactly what we need. It has been, everybody said here, this is something we really hadn't thought about, but I thought you brought up some good points. We will get with Jim and staff and Tom and begin to look at this, and somebody from the city will be will respond to you.
Great.
All right, thank you for your
all.
time.
Thank you for your time.
Yep.
John?
Very good. Okay, Miss Jan Minger, if you would please state your name and address for the record at the podium. Thank you.
I'm Jan Minger, 601 Savannah Barony Drive in North Augusta. Mr. Mayor and ladies and gentlemen of council, thank you for the opportunity for me to speak with you tonight. I'd like to bring to your attention a safety matter that relates to the crossing at Pisgah Road where Greenway crosses near the intersection of 5 Notch Road. Over the course of several months, my husband and I have observed that the blinking yellow lights that alert motorists to the approach of pedestrian traffic on the Greenway doesn't seem to be working properly. On Sunday afternoon, we monitored the intersection for about 30 minutes. During that time, we observed both the yellow lights for traffic and the red lights for pedestrians. The yellow light on the right side as you drive toward 5 Notch was blinking almost constantly, whether there were pedestrians on the Greenway or not. The yellow light on the other side rarely blinked at all, even when there were pedestrians coming from the I-20 towards Knotty Pine Drive. The red lights are apparently meant to warn pedestrians of the possibility of approaching vehicles, and the yellow lights are apparently meant to warn vehicles that there could be pedestrians on the Greenway approaching the crossing. The lights flash either almost constantly for what appeared to be little reason at all, or flash randomly or infrequently, seemingly without any connection to the movement of vehicles on the street or the people on the Greenway. We observed numerous vehicles approaching the crossing from one direction or the other. Most slowed down considerably, simply out of caution, regardless of what the warning lights were doing. Others seemed to disregard the lights and the fact that this is a pedestrian crossing area and almost never slowed down at all. These lights seem to operate inconsistently with regard to what we believe their intent is. Others have recognized this issue as well. While we were monitoring and making our notes, a friend stopped to see if we needed help. She noticed that we had been there when she passed by and were still there when she returned. We told her that what we were doing, and she commented that she too recognized that the lights were inconsistent. My concern is that with this randomness and inconsistency, there's a strong possibility that vehicle drivers and pedestrians might be ignoring the warning signs completely. I ask that the city evaluate all the lights at this crossing and make any changes necessary to improve the safety of the area and minimize the potential for disastrous accident. Thank you for your time and attention.
Anybody aware of that or any comment?
Well, you know what was funny today? I came through there on the way back from Mount Vintage, and I saw it, and it caught me by surprise. You know, I know it's there, but I saw the flashing yellow light, exactly what you were saying, and it does bring attention to, you know, hey, slow down, and generally I do. And I'm trying to remember, there's several places where the Greenway cross over main roads that we have a speed hump built in. I don't think 5 Knot, or right there,
Well,
is one of them,
we
is it?
had a speed hump there to begin with, and that was a disaster. Okay, now I will say this, and I go through it 10 times a day because I live right there at it. Sometimes it'll stay blinking, and if you'll look, you will have seen a person crossing that had crossed maybe 3 minutes earlier, and it will blink till they out of sight. So that might be what's happened by it keep on blinking. But I will say this, I'm like Jan, that wears me to death too, because I'm coming through there all the time. Hammond Hill Pool, the Greenway by Cypress,
Yes.
the pedestrians have to stop, not the cars. The same thing in Knollwood. The pedestrians have to stop, not the cars. And so I haven't been to the other ones, but I know this one is the one where the cars stop and the pedestrians have a right of way. And so I think if we could change that pedestrians cannot cross till all cars are gone.
Well, the pedestrian light is the red light.
Yeah, but they don't. I mean, I'm telling you, I do slow down when I get there. Not that I'm speeding, but I do slow down because I do know there's a lot of crosswalk there, people crossing. And so,
I think it's a high traffic area for concern on both sides, motor vehiclists and for the pedestrians on the greenway. I know on the Swamp Rabbit Trail, it's a similar system where the pedestrian stops
Yeah.
first and then the traffic would be secondary. But at that high, that's a high traffic area, so I think it would be important to look at. I mean, obviously, we don't want to be stopping traffic possibly, but there's going to be a concern for safety there. And I think you bring up a good point. I've been the runner crossing through there, and you kind of cross at your own risk. But I also have watched plenty of runners just not even stop at Cypress or
Right.
anything like that.
Right.
So I know there's going to be training on presenting safety for the greenway too, for the people using it and cyclists and all that. But I think you bring up a really great concern, and I hope that we look into it and find a solution.
You got something?
I don't really have anything to add. I mean, I agree. It's I'm through there constantly, both driving and running or walking down that section of the greenway, and I don't know that it's ever really worked consistently correct. I think you're right. And the fact of the matter
About
is,
time to fix it. What you think, Jan?
I always slow down when I'm driving because I never know if it's actually working right, and I always kind of just close my eyes and
Yeah.
run when I'm running and just hope for the best going across the street. But yeah, I mean, it's at the very least it's a high traffic area. It's never going to be perfect because it's a high traffic area, but at the very least that function we need to make sure that it's consistently working.
So question for y'all that actually do use the greenway. I'm guilty of not using it. But are there stop signs at most, or for the pedestrians? Is there a clearly marked stop on most of them? And,
Most
and
of
I'm
them,
wondering, okay, because I mean, unfortunately, like you say, unfortunately, there are bikers and runners. I don't know how many times I've come through like the Hammonds Ferry Road down by the soccer complex, going to soccer or taking the boat or whatever, and people will just dart out in front of you. Unfortunately, and that's a pretty high visibility area where you're talking about people come off of 5 Notch and they're coming down the hill on Pisgah. I mean, it's but that blinking yellow light caught me today, and it's almost like, oh goodness, okay, it's blinking, and I was looking around, well, where's the person at? And you don't see them, and it kind of catches you as a driver off guard a little bit too. I seem to, by the Hammond Hill Pool and like I say, by the soccer complex, I know they're there. I always slow down anyway, but that's the one area where it kind of caught me off guard today with that flashing yellow light, and I kept looking for a pedestrian, and there was none to be found.
Mr. McGee?
I would say that, make sure everybody knows, prior to me being on council, I actually physically installed most of those crosswalks. That one at Pisgah, we did install it, it was a higher hump at one time, but I was asked to remove it and lower it. So then we put in that traffic signaling system. So it's not a foolproof system. It works off of sonar, I believe, and radar. So it's going to pick up different things, and that's going to mess up the signaling cycle, I do believe. But yeah, it probably just needs to be reworked and looked at.
Yeah.
But it's not a perfect system. I think, unfortunately, we need to put a stop sign, and signage needs to be make sure. I believe there is signage there, but we just need to make people aware that they need to be very careful coming across there. I know it's kind of a speedway. As a subcontractor at the time, I didn't agree with removing it. I wanted it to stay taller because the whole purpose of it was to slow people down, make them stop.
Could we not put a warning light further up? Just that I guess you don't want one flashing in a residential district like that all the time. It just makes people aware before they get closer to it that there's a pedestrian. I don't know, just something, 100 yards up the road or something.
There also are some other lighting systems that, we could upgrade to where it actually puts strip down the side and so forth. There's some other different newer style crosswalk systems, but they're costly too. But
We won't solve that tonight, but Jan, I think you bring a great point, and what I'm hearing here is we definitely need to address it. So we will talk to the correct folks, and someone will give you a response, okay? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, I believe Miss Diane LaRue is here. If you would please state your name and address for the record, please, ma'am. And let me just interrupt real quick before we start. We're right at about 5:20, so our one other person that said they were going to show up has not yet. So for anyone who's happened to have walked in and we may have time for you. If you would like to speak to council, I just ask that you would step forward and let JD put your name on the list. So I'm just going to All right, go ahead. I'm sorry about that. Thank you.
Fine. Thank you for hosting this. Honestly, I feel like I could call any council member any night and they would respond. So it's just another opportunity for North Augusta to be responsive, and I appreciate that. I am Diane LaRue. I live at 72 Crystal Lake Drive, North Augusta in Hammonds Ferry, intentionally moving to an urban setting because I like the idea of urban living and I like the idea of a strong sense of community, which is what I love about North Augusta. I use that word community intentionally because there is a strong sense of community here and a strong sense of community pride. It's evident when you drive across the bridge from the other side where I used to live that care is taken to everything. There's a lot of attention to detail. I think Roy Keebler is a treasure in this community, and we're very fortunate that he makes us look good all the time. So when the city was offered a deal for a baseball stadium, because of that attention to detail, I was all in for Project Jackson. I spoke in favor of it at nearly every single hearing. During those hearings, residents were assured that attention to noise and lights and traffic would be contained, all of which came to fruition, I might say. Rarely does a project hit the target straight out of the gate, but we're pretty darn close with Riverside Village. I walk there nearly every day. I frequent the businesses and have a 5-year contract as a Green Jacket season ticket holder. I want Riverside Village to succeed. The growing pains that I see are centered around two items, and I'll address a third one: cleanliness and parking. I'd also like to weigh in on the noise ordinance, if
At
that's
6 o'clock
permissible.
you can. Just that one, you'll have to wait till 6. But
Okay.
your cleanliness and parking, go get 'em.
All right. So the cleanliness, the promenade between Crown Plaza and the stadium of Riverside Village seems to be an unclaimed property for cleanup. Cigarette butts, bottle caps, beer bottles with cigarette butts in somebody's lunch or have been littered in that area since before Memorial Day. Cigarette butts are now firmly affixed in the spaces where grout doesn't exist between the cement tiles. There are no trash cans, no ashtrays, nor any other means for containing debris.
Where was that again? I'm sorry.
In the promenade
Right.
between Crown Plaza
Between Crown and
and
yes.
Riverside,
Perfect. I was going to make sure you're right.
the
Okay.
park. I'm guessing this is a simple oversight, but it's not in keeping with the standards of operating principles in North Augusta. And someone needs to take ownership of that, whether it's the city, the businesses, or a combination of the two. Second, parking at Riverside Village. People have found all kind of creative ways to avoid parking in metered spaces. Most of them are unsightly, but some are dangerous. The massive electric meter box that's enclosed in a brick structure between, it's clearly marked, it's between Swank and Southbound. It's clearly marked for 1001 Center Street, which is the Riverside Village complex. There are 2 signs reading, "No parking, tow-away zone," on this structure. It appears to be there for good reason, because emergency vehicles need to be able to access that meter box in the event of an electrical problem. Yet cars park there daily, and to my knowledge, they've never been towed. Either the tow-away sign needs to be removed, or cars need to be towed. Either it makes the city look careless and thoughtless at best and dangerous at worst. Could be that some of the reasons the vehicles park in this space is that there is no loading zone for Swank nor southbound. Rezoning some of the parking in the circle in front of the amphitheater to loading could possibly alleviate this problem, and it would provide easy access for Uber pickup and golf cart drop off as well. I dropped my golf cart comments because I wanted to keep this to 5 minutes, but now I have a little more time since I'm not talking about.
Well, let me just because you brought the first, well, go ahead, talk about the golf cart, that's fine.
So the golf cart parking, we didn't plan on as many golf carts as we have. So people are jumping up there now, and they're surrounding a fire hydrant. I know there's golf cart parking available in the parking deck, but I don't know how many people know that. And I don't know if we need signs or an incentive, like you get to park there for free, whatever. But something needs to be done to encourage people to be more safe about their parking.
Very good. I definitely think these are some things we can address. I'll open up any questions for Diane from council.
I
Any
wanted us to have
clarification?
more golf cart parking spaces. I tried to get us
It's
to put
become
more
very
in there,
popular.
but nobody else would go with it.
Are you familiar with the loading zone piece? Have you seen that, Eric?
Well,
She's
you know,
over.
I've
I'm just
gone
not
down there a
familiar.
couple of times, and you know, and I've seen where there have been some vehicles like the delivery trucks back into exactly where Ms. LaRue is talking about to load and unload. There really isn't though. She is correct, and that is something. You know, if contractors need to get into work, you know, and that's something I know we've touched on, but we probably need to look into that, because if you have a repairman or loading and unloading, you know, there's not enough room for one of the big food trucks that usually like the 18-wheeler Cisco trucks. There's not enough room for them to even get around that circle that you mentioned, and then once you do, you're blocking the entire entrance and exit. So I think that's why a lot of times they are backing up onto that concrete pad right there, and I know exactly where she's talking about. You know,
Rio
like,
Cantina does not seem to have that problem. The truck parks on the street right beside them. But I've seen the owners at Swank and at Southbound park in that dangerous area.
Well, I definitely think we can get you some answers. So
Yeah.
this is good. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and unless anybody else has anything else for Diane?
well, one thing I wanted to add, you are correct with the trash cans. I think we put some tables out initially when that was finished, but there are no trash cans available outside of you know, the restaurants, obviously, you know, Rio and the hotel, the little restaurant there or whatever. There are trash cans in front of the business, but in that middle, there is nothing. There is
That
nothing.
needs
Maybe
to
we could
look
look into
nice.
that.
It does.
No, we definitely need to add some.
Yeah, okay.
I just wanted to
Thank
say.
you very much,
Can I say
Diane.
one more thing?
Yes,
I just wanted to say thank you for bringing some of the
Absolutely.
issues, but also having some solutions that you thought about too that helps us think
Yes.
too, and not just providing, you know, one way or the other. I think
So
it's
I really rely on the good work all of you do. So I don't stay on top of your business because I feel like you're doing a good job. But when I see something repeatedly, I know that's not the way North Augusta operates.
Yeah,
So
we
I'll
want
bring it
high-
to your attention. But
Well, this is what this is all about. So
Exactly,
thank you very
and I
much. I appreciate your
appreciate it.
time. Thank you, Diane. That's
Thank you, Miss
great.
Diane.
Thank you.
I know Survey's not here. Is anyone here representing him by chance? Huh. So, okay. Well, we still have a few minutes. So, is there anyone in the audience who has anything in particular they would like to share with City Council? I would give you that ability to come forward if you do. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. If you'll come down, and I'll just ask that if you'll just give JD your name, come on down and just state your name and address for the record at the podium. That would be great.
S-A-R-E-N, Bright, B-R-I-G-H-T.
I didn't recognize you with your mask on. How you doing, young lady?
Fine, thank you. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. So, I'm gonna try to stop panting.
You're
breathing.
okay.
I'm a
Slow
little
down.
bit nervous.
Sharon, take a breath. You're
We're
fine.
all
We aren't
friends
gonna-
here.
We're not going to hurt you, I promise. Just slow
Did you
down.
say my address as well, for the record?
No, you're
Okay.
good. Go ahead.
All right, so, this past weekend, well, first of all, my name is Sarah Bright. I am a North Augustian, a little over 2 years now. So, hello, everyone. And this past weekend, I was able to hold an event. It was called Chalk It Up. It was a block party. At that time, I was able to meet our mayor, Mr. Britton Williams. And should I say, ironically, I saw the news program this morning that said if you had any concerns about your neighborhood, come and address it. So I thought maybe I should, because I had a few concerns. Since, like I said, I've been here for about 2 years now, and I observed a lot. Like the other young lady just said, you guys do an awesome job. I love North Augusta. I like calling it my home. So as I observed, I noticed there were just a few things that I wanted to bring to someone's attention. So as I ride down the road, sometimes there aren't any sidewalks, and sometimes I see school-aged children walking along the sidewalk. Occasionally, I will, as a mother, occasionally I'll ask them, like, you know, are you on your way to school? Do you need a ride? Because it's not very safe for them to be walking on the side of the road. So, can I back up really quick? Do I have 5 minutes? Is that correct?
You go ahead. You're
Yeah,
good.
okay.
We're good. right now.
This is a newsletter that I proposed during my Chalk It Up event, and it was just to like bring awareness to my neighbors initially. So this is what I'm going off of. They might not necessarily be housed under this organization, that some of them might be addressed in the school system, but it was just something that I saw in the community, and I thought it might be a simple fix for it. So I proposed a late bus initiative. I did contact the school system, and I just proposed that late bus initiative so that if there is a school-aged child who misses the school bus, perhaps we could send out a late bus to pick them up so that they're not walking on the side of the road or getting into the car with strangers like myself. And I always tell them, do not get in the car with strangers. You know, stay at the school, call your parent, try to come up with some sort of other plan. If you know your neighbors, maybe let your parent know that you missed the bus on your way to school, some sort of solution. But that was something I really, you know, I just said maybe if we could tweak it a little bit in the school system as a community, that might help. I think we all know why they shouldn't be walking on the side of the road. They could get into a car with a bad stranger. So that was one thing. The other thing I put in my newsletter was Leave the Light On initiative. Something else I noticed living here, there are a lot of dark roads here. I run into deer, possum, raccoons, people. I've run into a horse one time. So I spoke with the North Augusta Public Safety one time, and he said how my block was so dark that when he rides through, he has to put on his floodlights, are they called? So that was something else I wrote about in my letter. And my initiative was just to maybe ask our neighbors to keep their porch lights on. It's not economically wise, so I also suggested maybe solar lights. When I spoke with the mayor here, he also let me know that there was another option to request them to be put on your property. I did go through with that request today. I'm just waiting for the follow-up. Some other things I mentioned when I was speaking with public safety, we were saying how sometimes there's like, who doesn't Uber Eats here? Or what are the other deliveries? And sometimes it's really hard for them to navigate where our house is. So I think that if our neighbors just kept the lights on a little bit, that would help some of the pedestrians who are just getting home from work at night, like they need to see the well-lit road. I was kind of thinking of the community as a whole when I put this in my newsletter. And then there's those Ring doorbells. Like, they do come with a nighttime light, but how much better would it be if you just had a hover light, you know, your actual light to see who's at your doorbell and assist with any sort of help that might come from those Ring doorbells. Those were just some of the things I put in here. Lastly, since my daughter, she's 9 now, she's 10, since she's been going to school, I make it a habit to check her book bag day as she goes in and as she comes out. I think we've all heard things on the news about stuff that's in the school that shouldn't be there. Somehow it slips underneath the, whatever it's called, whatever that gap is, things happen. So in my paper, I put a check, pack check, basically just saying before and after your kid comes home, check the book bag, go through the folders. It's a great way to stay in contact with their teachers, just the regular school communication about events going on or new policies, or like the principal's retiring now from Hammond Hill Elementary, not retiring but moving on, just a way to keep in contact with your kids' school, and also to prevent stuff like weapons, narcotics, and any spirits from getting into the school. The last thing I put was one time when I checked my daughter's book bag, I found a leftover ice cream sandwich from lunch. So that's why I always say, like, just check the book bag. Like I said, these might not necessarily be housed here, but if you guys are listening and have a listening ear, you know, I'm just asking that they're implemented into your everyday lifestyle, into the community. You know, just share with your neighbor. And even if, I know on my block, when I first moved in, there weren't any lights on my house, and I feel like I live in the middle of the woods, even though it's a residential street. So I went ahead and I just invested and put 3 lights, at least around my property. And honestly, the police officer, when I spoke to him, he said that he suggested that to me because I said how dark the street was sometimes. So even if it's just you, the individual, keeping your light on, or telling your friends to check their kids' book bags, just wanted to, you know, voice some of my concerns for the community.
Thank
So,
you very much.
yeah,
I appreciate
thank you.
that.
Thank you
I
guys
didn't
for
catch
your
what
time.
neighborhood
that.
or street. What?
Sure.
She's on Pershing.
Yeah. Thanks again for your time. Thank you for this power hour to allow people like myself and the other young lady to voice our concerns. So thank you
Thank
again.
you very much. We kind of
Take
appreciate it.
But I'd like to say one thing, young lady, because I worked in the school system a long time. And you're right, check those book bags if you could get parents to do that. And I mean, we used to plead and beg, and you just can't get them to do it. And then number 2, I will say the bus issue. We share buses in North Augusta. You know, you let out your little elementary, then that same bus goes to the middle school, then that same bus goes to the high school. If we had enough buses for each school, but what's talking about, you know, coming and picking up late children, I mean, you're right, that is a problem.
Yeah. Can I share? I'll be quick, I promise. I used to work riding the bus for a handicap. I was a bus aide for
Yeah.
a bus here in North Augusta, so I am familiar with that. When I spoke with captain of the bus drivers, I'm not sure if her name is Sharon Harris. When I spoke with her, I made some suggestions, like if there were a teacher who is certified to drive a bus, perhaps they could, after maybe 15 minutes after the bell rings, just go ahead and send around a bus. I know they have an app now. I suggest perhaps making some sort of communication for the parent through the app to say my kids missed the bus or something like that. I also even said I would consider getting my CDL because I'm a little bit passionate about it. So I did make some suggestions. We're talking it over right now, but I think that's something I think it's an easy fix. If these kids, she mentioned something about them not having breakfast, but I feel like if these kids are risking their life to get back and forth to school, how couldn't we help them?
Yeah,
I
well, we
suggest
do,
putting a bag
I
lunch.
always did, if they come in late,
Yeah.
they got breakfast, if they hadn't eaten. But have you I would suggest calling King Lawrence, setting up a
That
meeting,
too.
you know King Lawrence?
Thank you. Yes.
And I have fought for the bus drivers. First of all, they don't pay them enough, and that's why they can't keep them.
Yeah.
But that's another story, and that's not our problem, you know. But I would suggest him. You've got good suggestions, very good suggestions.
We appreciate
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you. Okay, this is great. Anything else from council? I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and then we will have a few minutes where we start back officially at 6.
I was just gonna say, I know the first one was about sidewalks. Installation of sidewalk from 5 Knot Pisgah Road. Isn't that the sidewalk project, one of the ones we just released? Part of
No,
that?
I think,
I looked at possibly getting that repaved, and at some point we talked about
yeah,
what we're going to have to do.
what
to
I'll tell you
widen
about
it.
this is
Oh, Pisgah to Georgia,
yeah,
okay,
the-
okay.
The
okay,
issue,
no.
the issue with 5 Notch is, just so people can be aware, that project to widen 5 Notch has been something that's been on the city's radar for quite a number of years, and it's actually through the ARTS program, which is the Augusta Road and Transportation Initiative. So it's like a lot of these initiatives, it goes through the ARTS for funding. So you're probably looking at 5 years out from what Libby and Tom were telling me. So
I think it
That's what
just
he's
got
talking
moved up the list a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it did.
Well,
So
hallelujah.
that whole period, that's gonna come through the art, so our planning department is working on that with with the city. So I'm not sure if that's all that he wanted, but just be aware, if you have an issue about 5 Notch widening, the city's aware of it. There is funding through the arts, or it's not funding yet, but it is on the arts list, and it's just a matter of where that's gonna be, so.
And then I was just gonna add in there that, I know there's a lot of concern about sidewalks near the schools. Let everybody aware that that's the school district. That's the school district's property, most of what you see around the schools. So you know, yes, the city wants to do what it can, but also make sure you relay that message to the school district, because the school district is responsible for their properties.
Well, we are
They have a
getting ready
long
to
list, so.
start though knob cone from
Yeah.
PK to,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you, this project widen Five Notch Road now, Mayor, I've been here 28 years. 26 years ago, they were gonna widen Five Notch Road, and we have yet to see it, so.
It's
So
not
I'm
gonna
gonna tell you,
happen this
that's,
year, I can assure
yeah.
you.
Pat, I'll tell you,
I'm
I've been
sorry.
attending the arts meetings, and I don't want to be quoted on it, but I know we moved it up the list. It's on the top of that list.
Well, Lord, let's give 'em a
I
big
mean,
hand.
really, really
So
close.
the arts is,
Top
that's
2,
where we
3.
got the funding for the East Martintown Road Corridor and this as well. But anyway, so all good stuff. So thank you all for coming, and we'll be getting back started at 6. So we stand adjourned. I'd like to call the North Augusta City Council meeting of June the 7th, 2021 to order. We will now have invocation pledge of allegiance. You are welcome to join me in prayer. Dear God, I lift up this council to you, Lord, so we will have discernment in our decisions, open hearts and ears to what we hear from each other and citizens, and a resolve as we do the work of the city. Amen. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call starting from my far left. You'll just give your first and last name, please.
Eric Presnell.
David McGee.
Pat Carpenter.
Britton Williams.
Bob Brooks.
Jennifer McCauley.
Kevin Toole.
I'd like to invite Miss Elizabeth Hawkins to meet me in the front of the dais. I know she just walked up. Oh, yeah, the proof of the memo. Thank you. All right. Do we have any additions, deletions, or corrections for the council meeting minutes of May the 17th, 2021, and the study session minutes of May the 24th, 2021? If not, they stand approved as distributed. Thank you. I want to introduce y'all to a neat young lady. This is Miss Elizabeth Hawkins. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She's 21 years old. She is in tech and transferring to Clemson in the fall. She started a support group 11 years ago for the state of South Carolina, and she was the leader of the South Carolina chapter of the Curvy Girls, which is a support group for girls with scoliosis. She shared that she was diagnosed with scoliosis at age 10 and became very passionate about trying to raise awareness of getting screened early because she was found out by accident that she had it. The earlier it's detected, the better chance of not having to have surgery and less time wearing a brace. For the last 7 years, the governors of South Carolina have issued a state proclamation for June to be recognized as Scoliosis Awareness Month. The proclamation I will read will be on early detection awareness. Let me just say on behalf of North Augusta, thank you for your courage, your passion. You are proof of how our young people can make a difference in this community. Whereas scoliosis, the abnormal curvature of the spine, is a condition which affects estimated 6 to 9 million people in the United States. And whereas primary onset of scoliosis is between ages 10 to 15, with females being 5 times more likely to require treatment, and scoliosis can cause pain, reduced respiratory function, and limited mobility in otherwise healthy children. And approximately 1 in 6 children diagnosed with the disease will eventually require active medical treatment. And whereas screening programs allow for early detection and for treatment opportunities which may alleviate the worst effects of the condition, which is no non-cause or cure. And whereas raising public awareness of scoliosis is vital, helping children, parents, and healthcare providers understand, diagnose, and treat this disease and reduce the pain and suffering of those it affects. Now, therefore, I, Britton S. Williams, Mayor of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina, do hereby claim June 2021 as Scoliosis Early Detection Awareness Month. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina, to be affixed this 7th day of June 2021. Thank you. Let's give a round of applause. Miss Sandy Dirksen would come up, please. I'm about to read a National Garden Week proclamation, but let me want to give you a little perspective before I read this proclamation. Going back to 1910 with an organization called the School and Village Improvement Club that was instrumental in beautifying parks, lawns, and building playgrounds. All the garden clubs have been a big part of this community going back over 100 years. In 1949, 7 existing garden clubs combined to form the North Augusta Garden Council, and today goes by the North Augusta Council of Garden Clubs. This proclamation is for National Garden Week, June the 6th and 12th. I have Miss Sandy Dirksen here with me to accept this proclamation. Whereas gardeners have a passion for nurturing the beauty and resources of the earth through the planting of seeds, the care of all plants, and the riches of their efforts. And whereas gardeners work to preserve our country's traditional spirit of independence and initiative through innovation and hard work. And whereas gardeners advocate the importance of all creatures sharing our world and their roles in balanced and productive ecology. And whereas gardening serves as a challenging and a productive activity for all citizens, those just learning as well as those having years of experience. And whereas gardening promotes a healthy lifestyle that lasts a lifetime, helps reduce stress from other areas of our life, and teaches that rewards come from diligent efforts. And whereas the North Augusta Council of Garden Clubs enriches our city by maintaining Billy's Butterfly Garden, providing a scholarship for North Augusta High School senior, and sponsoring campers for Camp Wildwood. Now, therefore, I, Britton S. Williams, Mayor of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina, do hereby proclaim the week of June the 6th through 12th, 2021 as National Garden Week, and witness whereof I have here unset my hand and cause a seal of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina, to be affixed the 7th day of June, 2021. Okay, item number 7. Ordinance number 2021-05-10, amend the zoning map of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina by rezoning plus or minus 51.20 acres of land owned by Aiken County Board of Education, Aiken County tax parcel number 023-05-01-003, from PD Plan Development to P Public Use Ordinance. This is the second reading. Do I have a motion to consider this ordinance for second? Motion from Mr. Presnell. Is there a second?
Second.
No.
Wait. Mr. Toole? Oh, David? Mr. Presnell was first and Mr. McGee was second. Okay. Anything we need to know, Mr. Clifford, on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a second reading of this ordinance. So this has been presented to council before. So for our citizens in the room and at home, this is the proposal to allow us to zone this land as public use for the stated intent and purpose of having an Aiken County elementary school and middle school at these locations. This is a step that is required for Aiken County schools to be able to move forward on their project. And the staff recommendation remains that this should be approved, subject to the council's ultimate decision.
Are there any citizen comments? Okay. Any discussion from council? Hearing none, I'll take a vote. If all in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you. That is all of the unfinished business. We need now move to item 8 under new business. Ordinance number 2021-06, an ordinance granting an easement to Dominion Energy South Carolina, Inc. for placement of facilities to serve Fire Station 1. This is ordinance first reading. Do I have a motion to approve this ordinance on first reading? All right, Mr. Brooks, is there a second? Carpenter, second. Okay, anything, Mr. Clifford, you'd like to share with us about this one?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is a new item, obviously, and this is stated for the purpose of allowing the city to bring in utilities, specifically electric, through Dominion Energy into the Fire Station 1 location on Martintown Road. We did some research on this to find out if this is an item that could have been approved at the staff level, and based on the ordinance of the city, it cannot. It has to go to council for approval. So this is something that the city requires in order to fully move the project forward. As far as from an electric perspective, we have some time. Obviously, we're not prepared to drop electric yet, but this is the prep work for the conduit that's going to have to go in to make this project to go. So again, the staff recommendation to the council is that this be approved for us to be able to fully certify the Fire Station 1 with the proper utilities.
All right, thank you, sir. Any citizen comments? Okay, discussion, questions from council to Mr. Clifford, anybody? All right, not hearing any questions, then we'll take a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Moving along. Item number 9, resolution number 2020, resolution number 2021-19, accepting the donation of granite slabs from Tony L. Carr Jr. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion.
Motion from Ms. McCauley, a second?
Second.
A second from, okay. Mr. Clifford, anything you'd like to share with that?
For the councils and the citizens, this is a donation from Mr. Carr in the amount of 23 slabs of granite that he had received through salvage and is provided to the city with no strings attached. In our discussion with property maintenance, these are items that could potentially be used across a number of city facilities and parks, and so it is a staff recommendation that we move forward accepting the donation of this. Ultimately, that decision resides with the council.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any citizen comments? Okay, any discussion from council?
Well, where will these be stored? I mean, this is something we just keep on hand and we need it. A project comes up and we got it.
That's my understanding, ma'am.
Any other discussion? Okay, I think I might have had my microphone off. We had a first from Ms. McCauley and a second from Mr. Toole. Oh my goodness. Okay, no discussion. Let's take a vote. All in favor? That is unanimous. Item number 10, planning and development. Planning and development. Resolution number 2021-20, accepting a deed of dedication for the streets, sanitary sewer, stormwater collection, and associated easements and rights of way, along with the maintenance guarantee and a letter of credit for Austin Heights, Section 1. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Toole, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Presnell. Mr. Clifford would like to bring us up to speed on this one.
This is a routine action. This is actually a good news story with planning and development to say that this deed of dedication is an action which will allow us to transfer infrastructure from a development into long-term care of the city. And for those unfamiliar, for those watching at home, this is the Austin Heights development, which is on Austin Grable Road between Fire Station 2 and Exit 5. And so we're excited to see this project go forward. And again, the staff recommendation for mayor and council is to proceed and accept this deed of dedication.
Any comments from citizens? Okay, any discussion from council? Hearing none, I'll take a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Number 11, boards and commission. Planning commission appointment, recommendation by the mayor. Upon election to the office of mayor this year, I resigned my position on the city's planning commission, and I am going to recommend appointment Mr. Bob Bigger to fill my unexpired term of office through January 2024. I'd like to just share a little bit about Mr. Bigger for folks who may not know Bob. Bob has lived most of his life in North Augusta. He has been married 30 years to Mary Ann Bigger, who runs the director of our Arts and Heritage Center. They have two beautiful daughters, Sarah and Bronwyn. Bob brings a 30-year career in banking. Not only is he experienced lending of individual but also businesses, but he was a city president for 7 branches, so Bob has led people. He got his BS finance degree in 1988 to Appalachian State University, Mr. Presnell. He was a full scholarship football player, quite good in his day, as he says. He is a 2006 class member from Leadership Aiken County. He has served as a past president of the Aiken County Helpline, and he has chaired a number of committees, including the Finance Committee at Grace United Methodist Church. Bob brings a business background as well as a leadership background, which I talked with council before. I thought that was the important area that I wanted to fill my term on the Planning Commission. I think Bob fits that. So with that, do I have a motion to approve this? Do I have a motion to approve my motion of my recommendation to nominate Mr. Bob Bigger to fill my unexpired term on the Planning Commission through January 2024?
So moved.
Second, first Mr. Toole, second Ms. Carpenter. Okay, all in favor? That is unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Bigger, wherever you are. Okay. Just bear with me. I have a lot of notes here. All right, number 12. Okay, item 12, human resource resolution number 2021-21 to authorize the contract for employment of interim planning and development director. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution? Okay, motion by Mr. Presnell, a second by Mr. Brooks. Mr. Clifford, would you like to tell us about this applicant?
Yes, sir. So first, for the council, it's unfortunate that I have to relay to you that our current planning director, Libby Hodges, has taken a new position outside of government in corporate America. And so tomorrow will be Libby's last day here working for the city. She's been here approximately 3 years, and she leaves an enormous hole in planning and development, and I'm personally sorry to see her go. That having been said, it's a very interesting job market right now for planners, and a number of municipalities and counties are in need of planners. So I'm very proud to be able to tell you today that what's in front of you is a one-year contract for Mr. Tommy Paradise, who previously had experience as a planner in the city of Aiken and was most recently the Edgefield County Administrator, for a one-year contract to be able to serve here at the city of North Augusta as we go through a longer-term search. And so my request to you all as the council is to approve this contract to allow Mr. Paradise to come on to staff and to be able to move forward the great work that Libby Hodges and her team has been able to do to date.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any citizen comments? All right, comments from council?
Only to say I commend staff for moving so quickly to fill what will certainly be a hole in planning. Libby, we do appreciate the work that you've done. I appreciated working with you on several different fronts, but it definitely appreciate staff moving quickly to get that role filled.
Also, thank you, Libby, for all you've done for us.
Thank you, Libby.
Goes across the board, say thank you for all your time and effort and everything you've done here.
I've shared my thoughts with Libby personally, and I've enjoyed being on the planning commission with her, and I believe you have moved the bar forward for us, and we thank you for that. I will say I have had a chance to meet Mr. Paradise, and Tommy will fit in very well and will continue to help us move North Augusta forward as we address a lot of issues as we grow, and he brings a lot of good credentials, and very excited about y'all having a chance to meet him and work with him. I think folks will be very pleased with Tommy coming in as our interim planning director. So if there's not anything else at this point, I would ask for a vote. Please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Okay, item 13, City Code, ordinance number 2021-07, amending section 1221 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of North Augusta by establishing specific exceptions to said section. Do I have a motion to approve this ordinance on first reading?
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Presnell, is there a second? Ms. Carpenter? Okay, Mr. Clifford, would like to bring us up to speed on this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is an item we had talked about in the previous study session. So for the council members, as a reminder, and for our citizens that are watching both here tonight and online, understand that this change in the ordinance is broadly trying to accomplish three things. The first thing this is trying to accomplish is to allow the businesses inside Riverside Village the ability to hold events beyond the hours that we currently have, which is 10:30, to be able to extend to midnight on Fridays and Saturdays only. So this would extend to the restaurants and any of the merchants that are down in that region in Riverside Village. So again, that changes the ordinance from a noise ordinance from 10:30 to midnight on Saturdays only. The second thing that this ordinance would change is the ability for the city administrator or the assistant city administrator to approve special events. So, for example, if there was an event at the amphitheater on, say, a Thursday evening that was going to go past 10:30, that wouldn't have to come to the council for an approval. That's something that administration can do, so we don't have to convene a special meeting of the council in order to achieve that. And then the last thing that this ordinance is seeking to achieve is the ability of the Green Jackets, in the course of holding a baseball game, to be able to not be in violation of the noise ordinance past 10:30 on any night if a baseball game goes long for any variety of reasons, to include weather, if they have a doubleheader, if something else occurs that pushes their end time beyond 10:30, we want to make sure that they are not out of compliance. So that broadly is the three things that this ordinance would accomplish. The mayor had provided us with guidance, as did the council, that this would be a two-phase approach. So what you have before you today is specific to Riverside Village, and will be tasked with looking at a larger noise ordinance change for the entire city, but that is going to be more comprehensive based on sporting events, school events, residential requirements, and all those things. So this is the first phase, if you will, of an ordinance that would change the noise requirements here in the city of North Augusta. So I turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor, and to the council for discussion, and prepared to answer any of your questions along with the city attorney, Mr. Zier.
At this point, do we have any citizen comments? Come on down. All right, I'll just say this before, come on down, Diane. Come on down, Diane. I don't say how much we appreciate the public being here. It's great to see citizens that care. The one change you will see, there's no giant clock. I've asked our city clerk, Sharon Lamar, to keep the time for me. I personally think the clock's intimidating, as I've shared in the past. I would ask you stay within 5 minutes, which I've learned is in our code. Also, if you have something to say that has already been said, Please don't repeat. We need information that will help us help us in our decision, but we don't need it repeated over and over. And with that being said, I've never had a problem when I was on the planning commission with the time issue, because I felt I was flexible if needed, but no citizen ever tried to take advantage of me either. So hopefully we can make this work again. And Ms. LaRue did so fantastic in the public power hour. Thank you, ma'am. With that being said, please state your name and address for the record again.
Diane LaRue, 72 Crystal Lake Drive, North Augusta, in Hammond's Ferry. So I was reading about this ordinance in social media because I haven't been attending board meetings. So I was really unsure as to what necessitated the change to midnight as opposed to 10:30. 11 o'clock seems good to me. So I looked into some data that might help clarify whether there's actually a need for a midnight exception here. And I dug up some facts about North Augusta. We have a population of just over 22,000. Of that population, 58% are married and have been married at least 15 years. 43% are families with kids under 18. The median age is just over 40, 3% higher than the rest of the state. Compared to the state, North Augusta is 529% more dense in population, and much of that density is along the river. None of this should surprise any of you. North Augusta is basically a close-knit family community, despite some folks' idea that our city is flooded with millennials. So who actually benefits from moving the noise ordinance to midnight? At first blush, it might seem that the food and beverage businesses in Riverside Village would benefit. We know that revenue from beverages are the real money makers in food and beverage. So it may seem like a more profitable venture to keep customers until late into the night. But that's not what the data shows. The most profitable hours for alcohol sales are from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, accounting for over 60% of a bars and restaurants business. A Nielsen survey showed that food and beverage receipts after any happy hour discounts averages nationally to $68.99, $8 above the average for any other part of the day. On the weekend, happy hour income is only around 50% of that total. We've been fortunate in North Augusta that despite the economic turndown expected with a global pandemic, our businesses have not only stayed afloat, they're on track. It's my understanding that one of the businesses has a 10% profit margin from last year. That's normal, and that was a pandemic year. So I submit that the decisions should be made on sound evidence, just as I do in my job as an educator, rather than on what feels good or what your gut tells you. So I want us to work together to continue to move this great community into one that works for everybody. My suggestion would be 11 o'clock.
Thank you. Any other citizens? Come on down, please, sir. State your name and address for the record.
Once again, I'm still John Felak, 1901 White Park Avenue. I was aware that there was a sound ordinance discussion that was going to be going on. I come to you as someone who lived in the clubhouse for about 8 months and attend as many baseball games as possible. I see the 12 o'clock curfew as reasonable. Baseball is one of those sports that you just can't tell when it ends. And fireworks nights might be one of these issues that could be in question. And the fireworks nights that are there are extremely well attended. There is no better way to be proud of your country, I think, than to watch the 10-minute fireworks show at the ballpark with the river and the city of Augusta as a backdrop. So I think that the 12 o'clock curfew, and as a businessman, I think it is appropriate. So I would encourage you to approve the 12 o'clock period.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I believe a young lady in the back. Come on down. Well, no, you take your time. We're in no rush.
Don't think I need a microphone.
But if you'll just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Missy Martin. I am not a citizen of North Augusta. I am actually the minority operating owner for the Augusta Green Jackets. So my address is 187 Railroad Avenue, North Augusta, 29841. I know that one by heart. The Green Jackets have always been a community partner, and we have always followed the rules. Even when we were on the other side of the river, we've always made sure that we stayed with the ordinances that we were given. The issue is that we're playing very long ball right now. Maybe it was because of the pandemic. Players haven't played in a full year, and they don't have that skill set that they had, that they would have had they had been training for a full year. Maybe it's because we're the first stop for the Braves, where we used to be the second stop for the San Francisco Giants. I can assure you all, as council members, my staff is exhausted. And if they could leave at 9:30 at night, you bet you they would. But the issue is we can't control baseball, and we can't control the clock on baseball. We're not seeking to take advantage of any ordinances. We're not seeking to take advantage of opportunities that were given to stay within the ordinances when we sign our own events like concerts. We only want to be able to shoot off fireworks after a long game if the fireworks were planned. We only want to be able to have Riverside Village be a live, work, play village. It's what she designed. I understand that one of the things that most people don't know is that the city of North Augusta did not value engineer out two things when they built SRP Park. The first thing is a distributed sound system. If you're standing on Railroad Avenue and there is a game playing, you cannot hear it. The city of North Augusta decided to not value engineer that out and make sure that that existed, so noise pollution wouldn't be an option when we were building that stadium and when we played in it. The second thing is the state-of-the-art lights. Major League Baseball may disagree, but the Major League Baseball state-of-the-art lights that we put in 2018 also reduces light pollution. You cannot see those lights when you're standing outside of the stadium. They're just not visible. However, for those people that live in the clubhouse, I understand. They made a decision to move into an apartment building called a clubhouse. And the diamond that they had before them obviously wasn't jewelry. It was a ball game that was going to be played with bases and the whole 9 yards. We are very respectful to them in the clubhouse. So please know, as you're making your decision, that we are not doing this because we want to create ruckus down in Riverside Village. We are doing this because we have no other choices than to ask you all to allow us to be able to function with the clock that we've been given that we have no control over. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Yes, sir. Come on, state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Will gladly do so. My name is Ryan Abel, and I live in city limits, 505 Suite 200 Railroad Avenue.
Congratulations.
Thank you. All I wanted to say is that I don't think anyone has, well, I'm not going to say anyone, maybe people do, but obviously through the reading, Jim, you said that the Augusta Green Jackets are pretty much exempt from this ordinance. This is talking about other businesses, not including the Green Jackets. Is that correct?
Mr. Abel, based on this change in the ordinance, it would allow the Green Jackets to run past 10:30 on any given night if a game goes long. It does not cover concerts or any of those other kinds of events. Those would be special exceptions granted. But any baseball game that runs past 10:30 would be covered by this ordinance.
Right. And is it Miss Martin? I'm sorry. Ms. Martin said that she's not, they have a history of providing, and I can agree with that. I've been to many baseball games and sporting events at Lake Olmsted back in the day, and obviously I frequent SRP Park as a ticket holder. I think the most concern is as it pertains to Rio Cantina and Southbound and now Drift, as it pertains to local music and incredibly, sometimes really bad karaoke at Rio. I say that respectfully as a singer, but I think the big concern that I have is the Sharon Jones Amphitheater. Just being honest and candid, as a musician, as a person who's been in big, I haven't been in arenas, but I've been in big theaters. You bring a line array system in there and you let it go until midnight, there's no technology that's going to knock that down. You can forget about doing anything really in that hotel. You can forget about doing anything at 505 Railroad Avenue. However, I don't think there's any issue with a bar having a band in their beer garden or terrible karaoke as well. That is not 5 minutes. I was about to be like, golly. Anyways, the point I'm bringing up is I think you can maybe put in some stipulations for decibel levels that would protect those, because I live in Hammond's Ferry and you cannot really hear the ball field. You can if you really, really want to. You could hear it from the river sometimes. But you absolutely can hear concerts that are there. I've heard Funk You concert. I've heard my own concert. So, I mean, I know that with a real system that's designed to really throw it out there can happen. You don't hear anybody playing, at least in my apartment, you don't hear anybody playing the beer garden or the Rio Cantina. So I think for me, the only stipulation would be a decibel level, and I have no idea what to set that level. I'm not a sound engineer. Maybe that's something you guys could research. And of course, I completely agree with Ms. Martin. If you live in the clubhouse, you really shouldn't be upset about a baseball game. But that's just me, and that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Okay, I will turn it over to council. This is an opportunity for discussion. If you have any thoughts or any responses, this is time to do it.
I'll start, if I may. I think I support everything that this ordinance is attempting to do. I do think that the Green Jackets should be exempted. You can't control how long a baseball game goes, and that's a part of it. If you're going to put a baseball park down there, you have to live by the rules that game and that sport abides by. So I believe that should be a carve-out. I think where I'm having the most trouble is extending it outside of the baseball, outside of that carve-out for the baseball stadium, past 11 o'clock. To me, that just feels like that's a sufficient time for anything else that happens down there to be done. So I would like to see us amend this ordinance to keep the ballpark carve-out, but to eliminate the time for anything else down there till 11 o'clock, which I think is a good compromise. And maybe at some point, if we can figure out how to properly figure out what decibel is right and make those things as part of the overall review, I think that's a good idea. But as it's written right now, going to midnight, I wouldn't be able to support it. I would like to see us amend it to pull that time back down to 11, keep the ballpark carve out, and move forward with that. I could support that.
And I'm like Kevin, also, I think 11 o'clock is fine. And what I've not really liked about this was we're only doing it for Riverside Village. And I've talked to the mayor and Jim. I feel like if we're going to change this, it should be out throughout the whole city of North Augusta. I just don't think we need to target one area. And I know we said we'd maybe do this in phases. As things went on, we'd change. But I don't like to see us change an ordinance and 6 months later change the same ordinance again. To me, that doesn't. But I do like what Kevin said about the 11 o'clock. I'd be willing to go and then exempt the Green Jackets. I'm a baseball coach. Sometimes you gonna go past your time. I see that, and I think everybody in town would realize the Green Jackets. You cannot control a ball game, but you sort of could control a concert. So I don't know if I can support this or not either, unless it's been amended.
I'm actually in agreement with Kevin Toole and Pat Carpenter too. After thinking about it the last couple of weeks, I felt more comfortable with the 11 p.m. time frame and the exemption for the Green Jackets. We obviously love all the support that you guys have provided to the city and all the entertainment value too. So I think that I would feel more comfortable with an amended action.
Mr. Mayor. if I may.
Yes.
And I think we discussed this in a study session as to why 12 o'clock. The problem is I've been to many outdoor venues. What's the one in Charlotte? It used to be Verizon Wireless. I can't remember the name of the venue up there, but I've seen KISS there twice. You know, I think their hard stop in Charlotte was 11:30. The problem with 11 o'clock, in my opinion, and I've asked Ryan about this and a couple other people who put on shows, generally bands don't want to play much after 11. You know, 11, maybe if they get a curtain call, 11:10, 11:15. The problem is if we put an 11 o'clock curfew, then we're going to have somebody call at 11:01 if the band goes over, and we're in the same boat that we're in. I've talked to Chief and some others. There are people that call and complain about the North Augusta High School football games. The people that call and complain about, I can hear Riverview Park. And now we have, I can hear baseball at the Green Jackets, I can hear music, I can hear the marching band. I guess my hope with the 12 o'clock was it wouldn't be abused and it would give, I guess if you will, a grace period, you know, a hard stop at this, and then it gives time for the bands to get their gear up without creating a lot of noise. I don't think the intent was for any band that I've talked to play till 12 o'clock. I could be wrong, but again, the outdoor venues I've been to, even in Columbia County and other places, you know, generally they're right around 11. But the problem we run into is if it goes 1 minute over, we're back in the same boat that we're in now. There have been people that have called complaining about the Green Jackets playing baseball at 10:31, and I think at the end of the day, that's why this was extended as long as it is. I know several of the games have run over, Ms. Martin, if I'm not mistaken, till 10:45, 10:50, and then you add fireworks on top of that, you're well past 11. So in my opinion, you know, maybe 12 o'clock's too late, maybe 11:30, but that was my reasoning behind it, was to give a grace period. I don't think anybody's intent is to play up till 12 o'clock. You know, could it be done? I think so, but I'm hoping that if this does pass, we will have good neighbors that will respect that and understand that. But I just feel like it gives them a little extra time if they get a curtain call, or if something goes a little bit past. I just think 11 is only bringing it 30 minutes, and we've already come close to the Green Jackets several times of breaking that. I understand they're exempt, but, you know, that's going to be, you know, again, I'm not a booker. I don't know how hard it is to get a good act to come in here to say, well, you can only play X amount. You know, again, that's not my expertise. I don't know. But, you know, at any rate, you know, 11:30 might be a little bit better just because of that right there. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Okay. Do you have anything, Ms. McGee?
I'll go ahead. I originally agreed with the 12 o'clock, and kind of along the lines with Eric here, is my intention or thought process between the 12 o'clock noise ordinance was that at that point in time, the officers of public safety has the opportunity to shut things down. And by putting at 11 or 11:30, I think we're limiting the ability for our businesses, Green Jackets and the rest of them, to continue to conduct their business. And it's not necessarily my thought process or intention to say, hey, we're going to have concerts till midnight, because I know that they're not going to do that. Musicians are going to play till 11, 11:30 at the most for their events. They're not going to play till midnight on an event. But the thought process in my mind is being able to give the ability to shut things down if they go past that time. But I didn't want to be able to shut them down too early. By all means, I believe that everybody down there in our business district is going to be as polite as they possibly can to the residents, because they understand it's a mixed area. But I also want it to be able to thrive the best it can. So, you know, I'm supportive of midnight as far as the noise ordinance is concerned, as far as that element is concerned. You know, baseball, you know, we didn't, Miss Pat, you were here a long time ago when we were putting all this together. We didn't know what Riverside Village was going to look like. So when we had that development agreement and everything, we just didn't know. We didn't know how many businesses were going to be there, how many restaurants were going to be there, how late were they going to be. We didn't know. So we left everything in place as it was. So I think it's, now that we have a chance to see how it's worked, we've had 2 full seasons there. We lost a third. We're in our 4th season here. And I think it's an opportunity for us to see how it goes. And remember, ordinances and these all can be changed. We could come back to the table 6 months from now and say, this is ridiculous. Midnight is not working. So it can be changed. So if we go for the midnight opportunity for the noise ordinance, that's what I want to support. I want to support us to continue to thrive. We also have businesses that are looking to start business down there. We want businesses to come. So we want them to be able to have the leeway to do what they need to do to conduct business and be successful as possible. And that's what I want to be able to support.
Thank you. Do you have anything, Mr. Brooks?
I do. Mr. Mayor, I believe that 11 o'clock is a good time for ending. Nothing goes on good after midnight in my mind. I think we should leave it where the green jackets are exempt. And if possible, I would like to see some numbers on the decimal. What would be how would you set the decimal point? Jim, you have any idea?
So, Councilman, I would tell you that obviously City Attorney has looked a little bit into that to see if there's some other precedent out there when it comes to decibel levels. And the Assistant City Administrator and I have been in contact with other municipalities that have that set of rules in place with decibel readings. I would tell you that from a practical perspective, it's very hard to enforce because now it's almost like a radar gun. You know, you have to be able to calibrate that item. You're going to require every public safety officer to have that in their vehicle, adding to the complexity of things. And so as we've kind of polled other municipalities, there's a little bit of a gulf between, the law as written versus the be able to enforce that accurately as you go forward. And really, for our public safety officers, they're able to go down to a business there in Riverside Village and very quickly determine whether something's in or out of tolerance on the noise ordinance, because they do that pretty much on a weekly basis already. So my recommendation currently would be to shy away from putting a decibel level into any kind of ordinance, at least as we do a first blush at this. That'd be my recommendation going out.
That makes sense. But I still like the 11 o'clock on Fridays and Saturdays.
Great comments by everybody. I'll just kind of throw mine in a little bit. I might be looking at this, or when we began this, looked at it a little different. I'm not hung up necessarily with the time. That's part of what a study session was about, for us to start talking about it, and we came up with that idea of 12 o'clock. I don't think anybody has to be married to it. I think the critical part, based on some of the questions, is what people need to realize is the Riverside Village is a little different community right now. And our objective there, now that I'm mayor, and I think for all of us, is we need that Riverside Village to be completed. And what that looks like in two aspects has to do with we have retail spaces that we must fill. And we need to ensure that the businesses that are down there, that they are successful, because both when we fill that space with new retail businesses, I'm talking about the kind that come to a live, work, and play environment. Those are restaurants, those are bars, those are cafes. And where I guess the 12 part of that thought process just had to do with the competition of Augusta, Georgia. Riverside Village is a live, work, and play for young professionals. And I will tell you, from children 28 to 26 years old, when I go, I don't go out that late, but if I go to a place, I stay there. The folks who are coming to Riverside Village, and they aren't me, the people who are going to Riverside Village, when things stop, they go over to Augusta. They have no problem getting in the car. And I can assure you, vans are not stopping at 10:30 or 11 o'clock in Augusta. That is a competition. So the longer we can keep people in Riverside Village where it's active, I think there's benefit for that, because why? That generates money for the city. So I think getting the ordinance passed is first priority, because whatever time we decide, anything's better than 10:30, because we got to have the ordinance. We already talked about the green jacket piece, but I think the midnight piece was just, in my mind, looking at competition of what's happening across the river. So my biggest concern is getting the ordinance passed, whether we decide we want to go with 11 o'clock or 11:30. I don't know if 30 minutes makes a big difference, But if that's what it's gonna take to, get this passed, then so be it. But we gotta get the ordinance, because we've got to do some things to make that Riverside Village successful. And one of the ways we can do that is by bringing in new businesses and allowing the current businesses to stay open later. And that's part of what we gotta do, is decide what that time frame is. So that's kind of my thoughts.
Just point of clarification. This is purely dealing with the noise ordinance. There's no ordinance that this resolves that says that the business has to close at 11 o'clock. Correct? Am I missing something? Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I guess at this point, then I would like to formally move to amend the ordinance to remove the limitation of 11:59 and move that back to 10:59 p.m. Let's go ahead and have that conversation, and either that passes or it doesn't, and then we move on and decide from there.
So we have a motion from Mr. Toole to change the time to 10:59. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, a second from Ms. McCauley. Is that correct? Did I do that right? Okay. Okay. That's great. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead and tell us what our next steps are.
11 o'clock would be fine. I use the 11:59 to avoid confusion with midnight and that kind of.
That clarifies. Yeah, so 11 o'clock. That makes sense. Yeah, so I'll change my amendment to 11 o'clock p.m.
Argue.
I'll second it.
Okay,
11.
so we have a motion by Mr. Toole to keep the ordinance as is, but just change the time to 11, correct? And there's a second from Ms. McCall, correct? Okay, so, discussion from council.
Now,
Yes, ma'am.
I've got a question. So if we change this to 11, and let's say, like you said, you've got a double header, what,
No,
so that does
that's
not
exempt,
imply.
no matter what it is.
She's,
Official game,
okay,
it can
and it went
As
on to
late as they
12 or
want.
12:30.
Yep.
They okay? Oh, I'm not.
What was the,
But listen, Pat Carpenter has been on the ball field at 12:30 coaching, so.
I think the record is what, 4:30 in the morning? The Braves did one time years ago, and they had fireworks that go off.
Protect-
They canceled it?
my brother and my parents were at that game.
Okay. It was a late game, I know.
So y'all can cancel the fireworks that night.
Mr. President. Comments?
Well, I guess before we vote on it as amended, I mean, we just threw out 11 o'clock. I mean, that's 30 minutes. I still think we're going to be right back in the same boat. I'd say a good compromise would be 11:30. Again, this is Fridays and Saturdays. You know, this is not all week, except for the exception of the Green Jackets, because you obviously can't control when that is. I mean, I think I've made my reasons as to why, because right now we're extending it 30 minutes. So again, if a band, all right, you got to wrap up, whether it's at the amphitheater, whether it's a house band, whatever. If they play till 11:01, we're in the same boat, and that's what's happened. People have called the public safety about the Green Jackets playing till 10:31, a band playing till 10:31. To me, you know, I feel like a hard stop should be 11. You know, maybe even 11:15, just something to give that little bit of grace period. Because I mean, 30 minutes, I think we're going to be right back in the same boat again down the line. You know, 12 o'clock I do feel like is too late.
Okay.
But I do feel like, you know, 11:30 would be a good compromise. That way it gives, you know, because again it says noise. Someone could still call and complain. Well, I can hear people walking around after the show. You know, I'm just trying to make it a win-win for everybody. I do feel like 12 o'clock for a band to play is excessive. I think, you know, again, a couple shows I've been to run to 11:10, 11:15. It gives them time to wrap up. I think 11:30. And again, this is Fridays and Saturdays. Any other day would be the 10:30 that we're already talking about.
Discussion on that? Any thoughts from anybody? We've. Okay. We've already had citizen comments. Thank you. I just don't want to open it up. Thank you.
And I guess, and I'm open to discussing that. I guess my only thing is there's always going to be something one. I mean, it's either going to be 11:31 that somebody's, or 12:01, or whatever that next is. So I mean, I think wherever we set it, And you know, I agree. I don't know that a band is ever going to want to play until 12 o'clock, until the band that wants to play until 12 o'clock goes to 12:01. And then, so I mean, I think you're always going to have an and one. You know, whether it's only moving it 30 minutes or moving it more, whatever's right for that area, I'm good with. I just, you know, I just feel like 11 o'clock's the right number. But I'm open to compromise. I'm willing to have the conversation.
Okay. Ms. McCauley, you have any thoughts? Are you stuck on 11?
I
Are you
think-
open to anything else?
I mean, I think I'm kind of stuck on 11. I think I consider kind of the hotel guest at the Crown Plaza too in that scenario. And I know Rachel looked at other cities, and 11 o'clock was kind of a typical time frame too. So I kind of took that to heart for the last couple weeks deliberating on it. And as Kevin said, the businesses are still able to be open. I think we're just looking at the noise. So as a business owner, I feel like your business can still be open. We can kind of tone that down. I think a big part of that for me was making sure the Green Jackets were exempted out of it so that they could continue to play. You know, we got a lot of people down there. We want them to enjoy. So I think I just feel more comfortable from a family-oriented environment to be with 11.
Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead. That's what we're here for.
Well, I think I want to make sure that we're not getting two things confused here. We're not saying what time businesses have to close. What we're doing is we're talking about when do we have to get the noise down to a reasonable level. And I think we may make sure we remember that. That's what we're doing here. So, me by saying 12 o'clock, I just want to make sure that I'm saying 12 o'clock because I just want to make sure that my understanding of what I want the city to do is people to understand that at 12 o'clock, that feel free to call public safety and say, hey, it's too loud. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mr. Mayor, I would be open till 11:30.
Okay. Any other comments? So basically what we've got now is we have a motion to amend the ordinance to 11 o'clock. So we need to vote on that, and then if, based on that, someone's still allowed to make that can be amended again. Okay. Okay, so you keep amending till you amend, all right? Okay. So, so we have a motion to amend the ordinance. Everything's the same except 11 o'clock by Mr. Toole and then Ms. McCauley. All right, so any other discussion on that? Okay, so what we'll do is all in favor of the approving the motion to 11 o'clock, please raise your hand. Okay, we have 1, 2, okay, 3, 4, and how many,
3.
I said 3 in favor. I'm sorry. Yeah, 3, 4. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and all opposed? Okay. Okay. So the amendment failed. Now, this is where, at this time, is there another amendment?
I'd like to make a motion to amend,
Okay.
keep the ordinance as written with the exception of the time. Instead of being 11:59, it would be 11:30 p.m.
Okay, so I have a motion from Mr. Presnell to amend to 11:30. I have a second from Mr. Brooks.
A second, yes.
Okay. Discussion. Any thoughts?
I think
There we
30
go,
minutes.
11:21.
I think the 30 minutes doesn't matter.
No,
So, that's
It's
just me.
29 minutes.
Oh, Lord.
I still think it's too early. That's just me.
That's right. All right. So, do we have any other
I
discussion?
mean, I still feel like we have found that any of these things can be amended at any time for any given reason. If we find it to be a problem, we can always come back and shorten it. If we find it that we need to extend it for other reasons, we always can. I mean, this is, and again, it's just for Friday and Saturdays where that's where most of your people will be down at that area, especially with ball games going on. And again, just want people to know that if it becomes an issue, we can always revisit it.
You know, I think that's a good point because the ordinance that we currently have was passed in 1956. Okay, 95% of the community was residential. So I think what the dialogue we're having, which is great, is I think we don't always have to look at everything holistic. We can look at periods of time as things are and then adapt. And that really is I think the genesis of this is time to adapt to this, and that's the most important. So,
well,
Well,
can I
and-
say one other?
go ahead. Somebody say something?
Go ahead, David. I'll go after you.
Well, it is a noise ordinance, and it's not a time for the businesses to close. But the reality of it is, if public safety is dispatched to a location at 11:31, that in sense shuts down that business, more or less. It takes away the momentum of what's going on, and it stops it because people are going to disperse. And that's my intention, because I saw it happen at 10:30, and my first question is, what the heck is happening, when I saw all that traffic down there. And then I found out it was just a noise complaint, not an incident or an accident or violence. It was a noise complaint. So in sense, like I said before, it's not about shutting the businesses down, but when you have that complaint, you stop it. And that's what I don't want us to be able to do. I don't want us to just say, okay, you have to stop because you have complaints. That's what I'm trying to say.
These are all good
And-
points.
And I think the I'm sorry, Bruno.
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I think as long as the businesses are adhering to what the ordinance is, then that shouldn't happen. They should wind their business down in a natural thing. But I think also something that we haven't talked about that's a little bit lost in this is there is still an opportunity for the business to ask for an extension for a special event where it's necessary that no longer has to come to council, which is part of this ordinance as well, that city administrator, mayor, and assistant city administrator, if I'm reading that right, I believe, can also grant a variance if a business knows that they've got an event that's going to go late. I think we can trust them to make that decision in those scenarios as well. So you've got the flexibility, but I don't think I think the business only ruins its momentum as if it's not properly managing towards the ordinance as it's written, because at some point there's going to be an end and it's going to get shut down if they're not following the ordinance.
That's a good one thing I was going to ask, reading what it says about noise. What's noise to you may not be noise to me, and vice versa. And, it could be people just standing outside talking, and somebody's going to call and complain. Chief, I don't know how how your department handles that kind of stuff. I understand with the amplified music and things going late. I get that. But, I mean, I know we are looking at rewriting the entire ordinance for the entire city. I'm sure y'all get complaints when we have football games at the high school stadium. I'm sure you get complaints from Riverview Park. I mean, I can sit out on my front porch and hear the announcers from Lions Field, the softball games. Matter of fact, during the summer, you can sit out on my front porch in Hammond Hills and hear the marching band practicing at North Augusta High School. The problem is that, the actual noise, that's what I guess I'm worried about. I understand the amplified music, and I think that's what everybody's basing this on. But there's nothing to say what is exactly noise. If I was Kevin's neighbor and he's cutting grass at 6 in the morning, I'm like, that's noise to me. He wants to beat the heat. I get it. But where is that determination, Chief? And I'm sure y'all get a lot of it, and I'm sure it's frustrating. But, I guess maybe if this passes as is, I'm hoping the businesses down there will be good neighbors to the people around them. And for the whole city, the same thing. If I work nights, I might go ask my neighbor, hey, how about, hey, I have to work nights, so I sleep there today. Can you wait till later on to cut your grass or something? I think we have gotten away as a society from trying to be good neighbors and trying to force people like us to make these decisions. So, if this is passed, I'm hoping the businesses and the promoters and whoever down at Riverside Village will be good neighbors. And I think that's going to go, carry into I know we're looking at rewriting the whole noise ordinance. I hope people understand that, but it's never going to be perfect because, again, what's noise to me may not be noise to you.
Right, thank you.
Well, can we, and I voted for the amendment, but and I don't really see now what's 30 minutes. So I'm gonna change my vote and go.
Well, we haven't
can
voted yet.
I mean, can we,
No, we haven't.
The
we're still-
12 o'clock.
No, right now, we've got amendment for 11:30, but we're having
All right, so-
discussion. We're not voting yet. Okay, we're not voting yet. We're still open up for discussion. So what
I
we
mean,
now
can
have
we-
is we have a amended a motion for 11.
all right, and if it fails 11:30, then
We
we
can
can just
keep
go back to
making
the.
amendments if you
We
want.
can go back to the original ordinance.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
I mean,
All right.
I don't know if
That's
this
gonna
be a
be-
consideration,
Back to the
maybe
original.
consider the 11:30 be for amplified music. Do you want to get that specific?
Well, that's gonna be too much.
Is it that specific as it's written now? No? Just noise in general.
Well, I think we could, again, part of, we can nitpick
Yeah.
back and forth forever on this. So, again, the key is the ordinance, and there's no doubt 11:30 is an hour better than 10:30. And, does 12 o'clock versus 11:30, again, with the data. So, I think we need to stay focused on the intent, which is the ordinance, and I think we're in agreement, the ordinance as is. The issue just has to do with the timepiece. So right now, we have a amended motion for 11:30 by Mr. Presnell and a second by Mr. Brooks. So unless there's something specific about that, I'm gonna ask for the vote. So at this point, no other discussion. All right, so all in favor of the amended motion to keep everything in ordinance the same, except we're changing the time to, we can say 11:30, right? 11:30. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Okay,
To amend it to 11:30?
amend it to 11:30.
All right. So we're
Okay.
leaving it at
11:30.
11:30.
Okay, so keep your hands up, make sure. So it's unanimous. Okay, passes. Now we've got to, we vote on the actual,
Amended
the
ordinance.
actual ordinance now. That was just amendment.
Yeah,
Okay.
that now reads 11:30.
Yes. So now we need a motion to approve, which will be the amended ordinance, which is now stating 11:30. So
Motion.
is there a motion?
Motion to approve the amended ordinance.
Oh, it's already on the floor, yeah. All we need to do is vote. No, we just voted already. We're doing it again. The ordinance, yeah, the ordinance already, yes, I'm sorry, yes. All right, the ordinance is already. Yeah, the ordinance is it. All right, so all in favor of the ordinance, raise your hand. Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, very good, very good. All right, amendment number 14, administrative reports. Anything, Mr. Clifford?
I covered this item earlier, Mr. Mayor and Council, but again, I just wanted to bid Libby Hodges fond farewell as our planning director, and look forward to seeing your future exploits, Libby, out there in the great wild. So thanks for your service here to the city.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
Libby.
we're now at item 15, which is presentation, communication, recognition of visitors. So I will now open it up. Do we have any citizens' comments about anything that's not on the agenda? Yes, sir. Please step forward, and if you would, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Seve Adigun. I live at 3107 Greensboro Way, Augusta, Georgia. I apologize.
We miss you. We're glad you're here.
I was stuck on the school bus at 5 o'clock, taking y'all's kids home. Two very quick things, if I may.
Yes.
Public safety issues I wanted to bring to the council. At the intersection of Gregory Lake and West 5 Notch, I was wondering if you would consider, someone would consider from the planning committee would possibly consider putting some sort of safety control, traffic control device there. It's a really, really bad blind spot. for traffic because the road is bending this way and Gregory Lake intersects here. So you have a blind spot from both your left and your right for doing higher traffic. It would really, really help if there could be at least a flashing red light or a stop sign at all faces of the intersection. Secondly, again, I drive school buses for Aiken County, for North Augusta specifically, and there is a gentleman who lives, again, on West 5 Notch, who is in a wheelchair. He's wheelchair bound. This gentleman travels up and down West 5 Notch often, at really unique hours of the day, 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning, throughout the day. It's a really bad traffic hazard. I had spoken with Mr. Clifford before to try and get some numbers. I don't have procurement rights, so I couldn't get all the information. But I was wondering if the city council would really consider doing a sidewalk from Georgia Avenue to Pittsburgh on West 5 Notch as a means of not just the man in the wheelchair, but other folks who travel throughout this region all throughout the day. And there's this a really, really bad piece. Kids going to school, folks walking back and forth for business. It's a 1 mile and 1/10 distance. And again, I don't have the numbers. I'm not having procurement rights, but I was hoping that someone would possibly look into it and see what that would look like.
We actually brought that up at the Public Power Hour just for the folks, and just briefly, there has been, as Ms. Pat would tell you, a long discussion for many years about widening 5 Notch, and that's where the sidewalk would come in. Mr. McGee, who sits on one of the committees for the arts, that project, which is Augusta Transportation Group that a lot of the funding comes from, that I know that project has been moved up. It's not moved up as in tomorrow or next year, but it has been on the radar, and I know Mr. Zeeser is here, and he's fully aware of that. So it's on the radar. We can't tell you what that looks like, but we are fully aware of that, and I just wanted to let you know. But thank you for bringing this up.
And I will say, that particular gentleman, that's been brought before council 3 or 4 times.
I've heard him before,
Okay, and one thing we did, and I don't know about the sidewalk, but, because he lives right there in those disability apartments, all right, that he goes, I think, to Hammond Grove Baptist Church, too, and that's what a lot of times he crosses. And I'd even brought up one time just a piece of a sidewalk that those people who live in those apartments, because all of them are disabled, that some kind of, to get to that church, just a piece of a sidewalk
Like the best
that
we
they
have
could
up
ride.
is
I mean,
sign saying disabled people in the area.
Yeah.
There's a yellow sign there, but there should be something to
but
accommodate
they are.
that.
You're right. They're riding in the road.
They are.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right, before I open up for final council comments, I just wanted to just end on my end 2 positive notes. Just let folks know the city sponsored 2021 Aiken County Public Schools graduation with a $500 contribution from funds of the city council contingency account, and that is something I believe the city has done in the past. So I think that's very positive. And you want to put that picture up? And finally, the picture you see up here is from a chalk party, chalk black party, a black party held on Pershing Drive Saturday. And that young lady is Miss Sharon Bright, and that's her daughter Brielle and her friend Olivia. And I had used some green chalk to write "I love NA," and those girls were colored in the heart in the middle. And I show this picture because this young lady came to the Public Power Hour, but she asked permission from the city to block off her street for a few hours so she could invite neighbors from several streets around hers. There were over 50 people, a combination of kids and adults, who showed up during the time for fellowship and fun with chalk. It was a time to meet people who they did not know on the street and on other streets. They had hula hoops for the kids, they had a ton of chalk, bubble machines, snacks, nothing fancy, but you know what? It fostered an environment of friendliness. She's lived in North Augusta for 2 years and has a lot of great ideas and ways to promote neighbors and families and just a feeling of community. Now, on Sunday, I also was invited to Miss Pat Carpenter's block party on Torrey, okay? They didn't do chalk, but they had a lot of other items. But I say this because when I left both those events, the thing that kept going through my head was, I kept resonating was, we hear from people worried always about growth and losing that small town feel. Well, here are two events that showed to me that the small town feel never has to leave, no matter how we grow as a town, because a big part of that small town feel, maybe even the essence of a small town feel, has to do with relationships to the people who live around you. And she and Pat both inspired me to want to be not just living in our community, but to ensure I am interwoven into our community. So I just thankful for both those. And for anybody out there, you know what, I threw a crazy idea on Facebook. I got a lot of response was, how crazy would it be if we picked a weekend, maybe when it gets a little cooler, and we threw a challenge out to see how many streets and neighborhoods could all hold block parties in one weekend. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? So anyway, I just wanted to end on a positive note, but I'll be glad before we adjourn.
I just want to say one thing.
Yes, sir.
Since you enjoyed both of those, you and Pat both, anybody here, y'all out there, we did the same thing 4th of July in front of my house. We block off Jackson Avenue from Merriweather down to Hammond, and I mean, we pull grills out, tables, fireworks. Well, we don't do chalk, but we sit there and cook burgers and dogs, and it is a fun thing. My neighbor Leslie Cobb started that when we first moved in, 8-9 years ago, and we've done it every year for 4th of July. The kids get out, and they have like the little kiddie pools and stuff, and it really does. You meet your neighbors that from around the area that you wouldn't normally know, so they are fun events.
All right, thank you. Okay, anything else from council? All right, before we adjourn, I will ask for a motion to go into executive session at the request of the city administrator for discussion of negotiations incident to proposed contractual arrangements and proposed sale of, or purchasing of property, the receipt of legal advice where the legal advice relates to a pending, threatened, or potential claim or other matters covered by the attorney-client privilege, settlement of legal claims or the position of the public agency and other adversary situations involving the assertion against the agency of a claim. Discussion will be related to city property identified as Aiken County tax parcels number 007-07-060003 and 007-007-06-004 and 007-07-06-005. Is there a motion?
Make a motion that we move to executive session.
Motion by Mr. Toole. There's a second by Ms. Carpenter. Okay. Please, all in favor? That is unanimous. And at this point, thank you all for coming, and we stand adjourned.